What's up, team? Welcome to the Huddle. Whoa, got a little feedback there. We're your weekly playbook for not only strategizing on the game, but changing it. From mastering the fundamentals of the craft to distinguishing ourselves in the marketplace, we're here to give the installer a voice and ensure you're equipped with everything you need. Let's band together and forge a new legacy in flooring. This is where you belong. Welcome aboard, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Huddle. With me, as always, Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez out of
Hey
Grand
guys.
Rapids, Michigan, Preferred Flooring. We got a couple special guests with us today. We're going to be talking inspectors, so we thought, hey, let's bring on some inspectors. So we got Paul Pleshek from the NAFCT and Jason Ramsey. We've had Jason on before. Jason and Paul, welcome, guys. Should be a fun-filled topic. Are we do a little bit of housekeeping here? Are we all live?
We are live.
All right.
Yay, it's working.
Magic things happen when you get to downgrade from the newest software, and then things just magically happen right.
Yeah. Well, technology is fun, fellas. So
I know, right?
We can all relate. So today we're going to be talking about not just inspectors and inspection courses, and maybe a path forward for installers from the aspect of maybe furthering your career after installation, but more so what type of courses or what type of insights can we gather from current active inspectors that can help us be better installers and prevent some of the pitfalls, maybe identify some of the areas where we struggle as installers, and inspectors are keen at picking up on those parts and pieces. And also, let's break down the walls of the image of both sides. So I'm going to start with one of the more contentious points: is do inspectors hate installers, or do installers hate inspectors? I've heard both sides of the story.
Yes, installers do hate inspectors. I hate all of you.
I think the truth is that most of them feel like there's battle lines drawn, and being both on the installer side and then being on the flooring company side, where I hire installers and I've dealt with inspections, I've dealt with claims and such. I think it's perception. So you guys want to address this part and get it out of the way at the very beginning. What's an inspector? How does the inspection take course? How do you guys get hired? And then after that, what is your real goals? Jason, you want to kick?
I would say
okay. Yeah, sure. So
one of us.
Either one of you.
So I think so. How we're contacted is, it could be a manufacturer, distributor, a homeowner. It could be an installer, anybody, to be honest. And I think our job is to really just inspect and report. Okay, stay completely unbiased. Focus on the issues and the facts, and just report that as it is. And there's this notion out there where I think installers think that there's no respect for inspectors because they don't think that, well, what do you know, right? You've never touched a trowel or had a knife in your hand or a straight edge or know anything about this stuff. And I think that's where there's not a respect for inspectors. And there's also this talk that, they're just hired by these people and they're going to do whatever they say. Well, there may be some element of that out there, but that couldn't be farther from the truth with the good inspectors and the ones that have some integrity.
I think I'd add on to that. What I usually find is good installers don't dislike good inspectors. Bad installers dislike all inspectors. Good installers dislike bad inspectors. And I think that's just the fact is that, hey, we all know there's bad installers, there's hack installers, there's hack inspectors, there's good people at what they do. You end up building a rapport with most of them, but yeah, there's people out there that can't stand you because you're constantly looking at their work. Well, yeah, guess what? Well, guess why I'm constantly looking at your work? And where do we go with that? Well, I'll let you run the interview. I could run off. I said before you started.
No, I think you were going in the right direction. I mean, how do I would love for someone else to say what's your, how do we get away from that? I mean, I tend to think that highly certified and well-trained installers doing things the right way don't mind their product or their project being inspected as bad as somebody who maybe is not certified and feels like he's been doing it the right way for a long time.
So even before I was certified, I wanted to be on every inspection anyways, because it's like if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know what I'm doing wrong.
Oh,
So
Okay,
it's
you're
just
a unicorn.
well,
same
that's
way.
the thing
same
though.
thing.
It's the level of professionalism you bring to the table, and it was always, well, if I am doing something wrong, I need to know what I'm doing wrong to be able to fix it, right? So that way it doesn't happen again. But the reality of the matter was I knew I was doing everything right because of the processes that we had. So if I was going to be doing sheet vinyl, which is pretty much everything that we were always getting inspected, well, I know I'm going to be doing sheet vinyl, right? So I still want to be there. And every time we got it inspected, they were like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this sheet vinyl. I mean, they were measuring the notches. They were going through every single thing, and it's like, yeah, you did everything right. It's just the material, right? Or the adhesive application that they said that was supposed to work in this space, it just didn't work.
Or they got on it too early and tried to blame it on the installer, saying it was
Yeah.
failing.
So I still wanted to be there regardless, because I just needed to know, like, is it something that I did?
From my
I think
perspective, I always liked it when I like it when the installer comes out. I mean, I started inspecting floors in 1995. As you can tell, it's been what hair is
a
left
day
is
or
turned
two.
white. It's been a couple here. And it should never intimidate or cause issues with the inspector if the installer is present. I mean, I've been on jobs where I've inspected the flooring and there were 5 attorneys there representing every party that could possibly be involved in it. I mean, we've been in different situations where and if your inspector doesn't want an installer there, that's a kind of a red flag to me. Right now, maybe if the installer wants to be argumentative, or if the inspector is being argumentative with the installer, maybe you need to defuse the situation. But there really shouldn't be a time when the inspector himself is excluding people from the process. It's better for us if the installer's there. You answer more questions and sometimes give an idea. There's often times that you had to do things a certain way, and getting that explanation can help. Might still be wrong, but
Yeah.
at least a reasonable explanation can be included in the process.
I did find
Well,
out one time that inspectors really don't like you to be there to ask them a bunch of questions. So how did
Well,
you
I
start
think
doing
good
that?
inspectors do. I mean, I've had both, and you guys, I'll let the inspectors chime in here, but I've been on the installer side. I know you guys have too, but I've been there when the inspector was pleasant and you worked through the scenario with them, and um, I never like getting combative with the inspector. What the problem we've always had is inspectors saying things on site and then their report coming back completely different. That's if I have any negative experience with it, it would be that.
So it comes down a lot of it to that commissioning party, right? And how much you can discuss or talk. So a lot of times we can't really opine. I mean, we can't talk about it, right? With what's going on. But what I like to do, I love it when the installers are there. And if it's a homeowner, and I'll ask that homeowner, am I free to discuss? And she says, yes, beautiful. And we can have this conversation. I can explain everything. And it's great because it's about educating and helping them. Then they'll have an aha moment. But when I can't talk, that's when I say, I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to discuss, but just kind of watch what I'm doing. And you can kind of figure it out, right? What I'm focusing on and what I'm doing. Hopefully that installer can see that and understand what I'm kind of zeroing in on. But eventually they do get their reports as well. And I like to tell them that, those reports, you can use that as kind of a blueprint to figure out kind of what went wrong. I just had one last week where big ego installer, and I couldn't talk to him. Whoa, boy, he blew up at me, man. And I just asked him, well, did you document moisture before you da 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 da, and the calcium chloride and the RH, and he just
So the site conditions, is that one of the first, that's probably one of the first questions for an inspector, right?
At installation?
Yeah, when you go on to, I mean, you are concerned with how was the moisture testing done? What were the readings? What was the ambient, temperature? What's the humidity? Those types of things are a big concern for an inspector when they're going into an inspection to figure out what the site conditions were during the installation. Was the product properly acclimated? All that kind of stuff. Is that right?
That's part of the equation. Absolutely. There's many more components, but that's definitely a start, depending on if that's where that inspector wants to start with things. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of it's a common question from me, or for me when we have an inspection is like, what was the moisture readings? Do you have the moisture readings? All this stuff. And so I think it's a great time to bring up one of our sponsors, Floor Cloud. Let's discover how Floor Cloud can transport your project site conditions right to your fingertips, and you know what your site conditions are, and it's all logged, and you can go back in the element that you need to, and prove the site conditions. Let's watch a quick clip from Floor Cloud. Ashlyn?
Real-time monitoring of your job site conditions via desktop or mobile device. No more manual checking for temperature, humidity, or even dew point. No need for base stations, Wi-Fi, or external power sources. Simply scan the QR code on the front of your sensors and you're up and running with the most accurate and innovative site monitoring system in the flooring industry. Dispatch your crews with confidence and reduce your climate-related installation issues. Floor Cloud, now you know.
Yeah, so we're huge believers in that type of technology, and being able to easily set up and get the information you need about your site. When projects are hours away, being able to get that information and properly set your moisture test and know the site conditions prior to deploying your crews is not only a huge time saving, but in the event that you have high moisture and you got to go back and check, you're not running back to the job site. So I know the boys use Floor Cloud, big believers here at the Huddle. So get you some Floor Cloud, reach out to the guys, reach out to us, and we'll get you connected. So those site conditions are important. I always get asked, did the product get acclimated? What was the temperature and all that stuff? So
Listen, I'll pile on there. I'll pile on there for you, Paul. I think that that is a huge piece of the puzzle for an inspector if you can actually document it that way. Literally takes away everything that can be suspect in the beginning of the install. Well, not everything. I hate talking in broad absolutes.
Yeah.
but there's no question that 99 out of 100 times when an inspector walks into the job, we ask them, no, did you test beforehand? And half the time they say no. All right. 80% of the time they say no. And the other 20% of the time they say yes. And you say, well, what kind of meter did you use?
95% of the time they say no.
What's that?
I said, you mean 95% of the time they say no?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. I mean, it is a vast majority of the time. Yes.
And, well, I mean, it doesn't help that, like, with the admixtures these days, the admixture company says you do not need to test.
That might be episode 2 right there.
Admixtures. That's it. That's the title of the episode. Just admixtures.
Yeah.
Listen, if the bottom line with anything that has to do with flooring is this, from an inspector standpoint, the manufacturer comes out and says, here's a product that we sell. We sell this product, and if you install it according to our instructions in an environment that we approve, under usage that we approve, we will warranty that product. That's what they state when you buy the product. That's where you have a warranty, is if it is installed in an environment they approve, maintained how they approve, installed how they approve. They're going to say, hey, that floor is going to last a long time, X number of years, depending on what the product is. And the minute that somebody says, well, I don't have to install it that way, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never had a problem in my entire career, and I can just do it this way because it's worked every time, and that floor fails, that warranty is void. It doesn't exist anymore. That's it. Right? That floor might perform. If you need that warranty, now you carry it because you installed it improperly. So
I got a question on that. For everyone out there, is there any literature or any specific type of way to approach it when you're being asked to install something outside of manufacturer specifications that will protect the installer? I mean, we live in Michigan, right? So when we have our winters, there are a lot of times when we have, like one time we had a failure in a restroom that was 10 feet away from an exit door in the middle of winter at a factory that was operational, and that was the employee's entrance. So every time they open and close the door, we get cold air. Cold air is drier than conditioned air, so it did its magic on some of the adhesive, right? But we had all the right docs in place, like you said, when the inspector got there. However, the story that the adhesive was telling didn't reflect our temperature of the slab, the ambient temperature and humidity. It didn't reflect any of that. And he was having a very hard time taking our word and our documents truthful.
So what was the issue?
Is that what's your, at the end of that, did they find that it was an installation error? Or did they?
So at the beginning, that's what I was leaning towards.
Because your question was, is there a way to protect yourself? I think that you can create a document as whether you're an installer or a flooring company. We have one that we send if we're required to or requested to install outside of conditions. But in those letters, they're always there. I can tell you a few things. Make sure that it's super clear, and I've covered this on the podcast before, but super clear of the possible problem, and that you'll find that they'll get the conditions on right if you send a letter like this. All the possible problems, and that they promise to identify you harmless for any and all failures, as well as any and all safety issues that result from a failure, and that you are confident that the chance of failure is high installing under these conditions. And then and it's much longer than that, but that's just it. And you make the architect, contractor, and owner sign that document. And we've not had one signed. It's always
I like the owner part.
We'll wait.
Every time you get
they don't want to go to the owner. They don't want they're scared
Correct.
to go to the architect or the owner, because really the fact that they're behind, don't have HVAC on, and whatever caused them to be behind, the owner and architect are like, well, you're the GC. You build the building. If it's not ready, what can we do? But it's the only way. I do know that there's been other documents, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but there's other documents have been created where the GC signs off and the flooring company took it right in the shorts in law, as far as like they go to court, the installer lost that deal because he's the professional. He didn't clearly identify what the possible problems were. He didn't identify that there could be safety hazards. He didn't ask him to hold him harmless or identify him from any and all potential lawsuits that could come up. When you start putting that stuff in your letter, the GCs, very rarely do they move forward with that, because it's hard to get all three stakeholders to sign a document like that.
Right. And I think that's go ahead, Jason. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, unfortunately, it all comes back to the installer. You're the professional. That's what the judge says. Why'd you do the job? I mean, you're the one. You know better, and so that's it.
And I think that's
That's
where the differentiator though is between being a company that's going to the GC and doing it and being the installer that's on site that's sub through the company that's doing it, because there's multiple channels, right? Where it's
Yeah.
all right. As a company, I can fight the GC and say, no, I'm not going to do it. Or I can be that company that's like, all right, I know the GC is not going to budge, installer, just do it anyways. Or if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you any more work. It's just, I've seen
Yeah,
both
it
sides
depends.
of the coin there.
It's
And
a
it
hell of a
just,
dichotomy to go through. As an installer,
Yeah.
it's a hell of a position to be put in. It's not good, but it happens a lot. The our attempt is to get in writing that they are, uh, even if it's just a response to that letter and they don't sign it, but getting proof that they are forcing us and threatening us with liquidated damages if we don't move
right.
forward. Those are the types of things that happen, and those stand up very well in court
And
when
I'm
you
not
are
going to
being.
lie, Paul, I mean, you hooked us up with that document and I've used it. And that was just to do moisture testing, period. Like, I'm not going to install this job if you don't let me moisture test. Like, this is brand new concrete.
Yeah,
Regardless if it was brand new, if it's old concrete, I want to do moisture testing. Like
I
I want,
think that what I'm sorry. I think that what what we're talking about today and what we're talking about in general with education is the fact that the more that you can talk at a high level and sound very informed and sound very steadfast in what you're saying, the more that you can convince end users and general contractors that this is not just something you're not trying to do an add-on sale. You're not trying, you've got instructions here that have to be met. The more that you can refer not just to the installation instructions, but the more that you can just off the top of your head refer to ASTM standards and installation guidelines and consensus documents through the industry, the more that you can just start rattling these things off when you're trying to talk to a general contractor, the more authority that you speak with, the more that you're going to sound authentic instead of salesman like, right? So it still all comes down to educating yourself constantly on these things and working through them, not just a class here and there, but continually, and going to what we had talked about with this, the inspection classes are a big part of that. I know that doing the inspector classes made me better at my job before I got into inspections. I know that when people talk about inspections, when they have that level of education and you can start talking with authority about the manufacturing process and the installation process and the maintenance and everything that has to do with the flooring from beginning to end, when you can talk to a customer and know you're right, because nothing ruins your own the image they have of you or your own reputation, like telling your customer something and just being dead wrong, just flat out wrong. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out on a carpet clean and had a customer say, well, my carpet cleaner came in and said that it was matted, it was wearing, and it's cheap carpet and it's garbage and it's wearing. And I look at it, I'm like, well, it's not wearing, it's it's matting. Yeah. Words matter, right? It's matting, it's crushing, it's cornrowing, it's
terminology,
right?
Yeah.
So being able to go out and educate yourself and get this level of knowledge where you talk as an authority on subjects, people sense that. People sense genuineness. People sense your knowledge, and being able to go out and do that. And I think that's where, as we talked about before, that's where I think inspector schools come in important for installers. Sure, you might want to do it down the road. You can make decent money at it. You can go get off your news, look at floors and help people out. But legitimately, every day that you go out on a job, the knowledge you would get as a certified or as a flooring inspector helps you to be better at that job.
Right. So Kendall says, are there two different standards between residential and commercial when it comes to moisture testing? Asking because residential has wood subfloors.
Different methods.
So, that's right. So for concrete, it's the same. For the wood, you'll need to test that wood with basically like a pin meter, and you can get that wood moisture content of that subfloor, and then the wood you're going to install, you can compare those and see what range you're in and what the manufacturer requires for the wood subfloor.
It's just the different methods. just the different methods. It's the same testing and requirements, commercial versus residential, just different between concrete. Yep.
And
It's
different standards per floor covering. National Wood Floor Association has what is it, 20 tests per 1,000 square feet? Jason, do you remember that off the top of your head?
Crazy. It's well above and beyond what ASTM 1869 and 2170 require. And then also most manufacturers usually will mirror the ASTM standards, but the NWFA is excessive. It's above and beyond. It's crazy. Yeah, it's something like 20.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, in their defense. Yeah, I get it. You're really going to get that real consensus and understand what's going on. I get it.
And it's wood floors, which can be more sensitive to localized issues and localized problems. So,
well, I'm glad you brought up earlier, Paul, about the understanding what you're saying, like presenting from an authority position. The fact is that it's the difference between being an installer, it's been doing it 25 years, and you learned from your uncle. While you may know how to put the product down, what you are lacking is what I think our industry lacks a lot of is professionalism, understanding your craft, understanding it, not just how to do it, but why are you doing it that way? Why are you doing a certain method? Why is that necessary for a proper installation? And when you get that knowledge, you're more likely to do it the right way.
Yeah, and we're not even talking like getting an inspector certification per se, right? We're just talking about getting trained, like going through a class to see what they're looking for. You don't even have to go get certified, really. It's just, hey, let me go check out what you guys are looking for.
Yeah, I know a lot of inspectors are old installers and they got a leg up. So, Paul, you were just talking about it benefiting installers and how that can. Jason, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and I think that's why there's organizations like the NAFCT out there that are going to, if you take that course, you're going to have so much more knowledge and learn really so much more about what you're doing instead of just slapping things down, gluing it, whatever, cutting it. You're going to have much more knowledge of what's going on. And I think that's what, if you did take an inspector course, you're going to learn more about the products, what it is that you're dealing with instead of just going through the motions. Because I think as you start off as helpers and you go to these levels, you're just going through the motions, whatever that guy taught you, and that guy taught them, and there's this lineage. And you just get in that rut, and that's what you do, and you think that that's the way you do things, but you're not really understanding why you're doing things. What are these products made out of? And so taking these classes, these courses are going to really help well-round you to understand a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, I always say confidence comes from the why.
And you know what? As an installer, you're always continually learning. If you mess up, you cut a corner, you don't do something right, and you get an inspector that comes out, I think you have to. There's a lot of egos out there. There's big ego in the flooring world, as you guys know, right? Okay. But if you can embrace some of that, I've been through it. You learn the hard way, but it's like going to school or college. You're paying for things where you're going to pay for it in different ways, and it may be more expensive, but it's a huge lesson. And hopefully you don't do it again. There's two ways you learn. You go through the hard way, or somebody somewhere has taught you and you paid attention. And sometimes those hard ways.
Sometimes that is the hard way. Sometimes
you could watch
paying
the
attention
Huddle.
Is the hard way.
You could watch the Huddle, listen to us, go get trained, get some inspector courses through NAFCT, and or there's other organizations, but Paul's like, he's a pro.
Paul and saying what they're doing, yeah, man, you gotta get with that. And I think there's a few things to think about it when you're an installer. If you focus on a few things, and that's really reading the manufacturer's guidelines, and then the second point would be reading the manufacturer's guidelines, right, Paul? Mr. Pleshek, right? Because how your course is. It's always hounding and pounding that in because people don't read, right? We don't even take directions. We just go drive. We figure it out, right?
We want a video, man.
And there's a few things. Listen, I mean, if you guys know me, I preach and talk substrate, subfloor, because hello, right? I mean, these new products that we're dealing with these days. 30 years ago, there wasn't the luxury vinyl floors per se. I mean, there was some like Forbo stuff, but not to where things are today. And getting your moisture, your substrates, expansion, a few things, acclimation, and you're going to be on the road to success. I understand that people don't pay, and money can be an issue, and that can be for another story, another topic as well, another day.
And I appreciate you putting up that. Thanks for the kind words there, Jason. Too. This course we put together, and we try to work with people as much as possible. I think you all know that, and I have known the guys over at Inspector Training Services, Will Stoner and Andrew Franzak, for 20 years. I served on the board of the National Institute of Certified Floor Coverings Inspectors with them, and have done events with them, and have just they've been part of my growth within the industry, part of some of my mentors as I've grown up in the industry. And when I got a chance to go and do a class with them, I think one of the advantages we've got here is you're going to get certifications from two organizations. You're going to get a carpet inspector certification and a advanced, which is the commercial carpet side of it. So from both organizations, you'll have to pass both exams and go through both processes, but you'll get multiple listing sites through one class. I really think we're going to do a mill tour. We're going to take a tour of a mill that basically starts as pellets and comes out as rolls. So that's going to be it's one of the parts of the process that I really enjoy. But I think that when you see the knowledge and the variation between what you get in normal training for floor, just specific to flooring installation, when you start taking classes that go into the manufacturing process, that go into, determining cause of problems, you start to see, like Paul was saying, you start to see the why. You start to see the why you have to do it a certain way. You start to understand in depth that these things aren't just arbitrary rules to make it so that you avoid the warranty. They're actually important things that impact the performance of the material you're putting down. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I know you didn't ask me to, but I wanted to share. I mean, and it's not just, installers that can benefit from doing the inspector classes. I've been in classes where inspectors actually come to the installation class to learn more about it, so that when they're inspecting, so it's kind of like we're learning from each other too. So it goes full circle, man. Like,
you can see Clayton just popped in. NW 40 moisture tests for the first 1,000 for wood floor covering, and 20 for the first 1,000 for wood. So I mean, think about that. That's crazy. I mean, but that's what they say. And you see a lot of these manufacturers, it's designed, it's really difficult for installers to comply to all of that. You got to try to check as many boxes as you can, but I understand the difficulty of it. And plus, everybody wants it yesterday. There's timing. We got bills to pay. You got to put food on the table. I get it. So there's all these things. And so that's why I feel sometimes installers end up cutting some corners because they roll the dice. They roll the dice.
Right. And that's where, like, I got the Floor Cloud QR code pulled up right here. And that's the thing, right? It's the technology that we have right now to make things so much easier, where you just go set it up and then you can keep track of everything when you're not even on the job site. Like, man, the technology these days, people need to start getting on it and making things that much easier. That way, when inspectors do come around, it's like, hey, do you have this? It's like, absolutely, man. It's right here. Take a look at it.
Oh,
Yeah, the more you can
mine's
leverage
also dynamite.
the more you can leverage that, the more efficient you can be. So along that vein, as inspectors, when you come out on a inspection, no matter who hired you, what is your full intent? I'm going to set this up actually. Your full intent is to just get down to you stated it earlier, Jason, to what happened. You're not really, I mean, I think there's this aura about like inspectors are against installers, like I stated early on, but that's not really the case for most inspectors. What is your guys' true, like, what is not, maybe job is the right way to say it. What is your goal when you go to a site?
Our goal ultimately is to be unbiased. I mean, unbiased is the word. We're supposed to come in there and have no feelings about a job whatsoever. It is what it is. The job tells us what's going on, and that's exactly how we are supposed to call it. We're not supposed to go in there and try to hang it on anybody. We're not showing up. I think installers probably, if I had one side of it to say that installers get that feeling, is because when I said before that manufacturers make a product, they say give you the product, they say install it this way, maintain it this way, keep it in this environment, have this kind of traffic. They have Clayton, this is why installers oh yeah. We go in and the manufacturers make the rules for usage, the rules for installation. So even if I walk in as an inspector and I say, I totally understand why you did that and it makes complete sense to me, but I can't say it's right. I can't say, take it. The manufacturer says, do it this way, or we don't warranty it. That's the bottom line. So we are kind of in that
doesn't lie.
We're frequently in that position to say, hey, the manufacturer sets the rules for the product they sell. Right.
Yeah.
And
what cases do you guys, when a manufacturer's installation instructions, how often do you find they go against ASTM recommendations like standards? You ever run across that?
Manufacturer instructions?
Yeah.
Manufacturer instructions or installers?
Yeah. No. The installation instructions from the manufacturer conflicting with say any of the, have you ever ran across any of that? Right, where a manufacturer
they go ahead.
No, I mean, like, so they say to install it XYZ way. Acclimation is one that comes to mind. Some many manufacturers say no acclimation needed for a particular LVT, and then you can find in other documents, industry documents, that recommend that it should be acclimated, even though that manufacturer states clearly on their stuff, no acclimation needed.
Manufacturers' instructions supersede industry standard because they're very specific products, especially on that side of it. On the wood side of things, maybe there's not as much that they can do to a certain product, but these are completely engineered materials. They're not, just harvested and made. So, if they make something and they feel they can get a competitive advantage on some of those things, and the bottom line is that if they say it, they have to stand behind it. Right? If they say that you don't have to acclimate it and then it fails because you didn't acclimate it.
Now, there's other things that if they're not there, you can default to ASTM standards, porosity testing, maybe mat bond, different things. But just like Paul said, that's what you have to follow with what they say. And if you comply to all that, in theory,
you should be covered. Okay. So Jimmy says, he's just being honest. As an installer, he had some jobs fail. If he didn't have a training background, he would have been stuck. Inspector, he believes it's the inspector's job to get the manufacturers off the hook because it was an obvious material issue. And then him arguing, he proved that it was installation related. In the end, they had to pay him to replace the defective floor. And then Rollin follows that up with, if they are to be fair, then why do so many times he hears they are checking in areas that have no problem looking for something wrong? So this is kind of goes back to my brother's story.
These are installers talking about
about inspectors. Like this is the kind of the fight that we were hoping to kind of see, right? And I think this goes back to my brother's issue earlier, because when the job that he was talking about with the VCT being in the area where it failed, and then them saying no, it's an installer issue, and then he said, we were like, no, we're certified to install your product, and then magically they were like, okay, never mind.
So I wanted to touch. I did see that when I wanted. I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
Go ahead.
No.
I did want to touch on what Rollin said. I'll say flat out that I learned a lesson. So in my own experience. Now, keep in mind, we talked about that. Experience is what you get when things go right, and wisdom is what you get when things go wrong. But I had one job, and it was really early on, and I was doing it was just a texture claim on a carpet. And I was trying to be this diligent inspector. The manufacturer had given me this checklist. I went through, and part of the checklist was checking for seam sealer. Don't ask me. I was a new inspector, and I went ahead and I said, "Oh, gee, I'll do what they asked." I ran into that installer, and I forget. I'm sorry, I don't know if it was a texture claim, but anyway, they denied the claim and they blamed it on the seam sealer, which had nothing to do with the claim. And ever since then, I have never looked at a thing that was unrelated to the claim. I've told manufacturers when they send those checklists that I'll look at everything that's pertinent to the claim, but I absolutely will not look at, I'm not going to look at expansion space when I'm out on a gloss claim, for example. Now, he's already thinking of examples where expansion space can affect what you think is gloss. But so, there's one of two things. Either it's an inspector that is inexperienced, who doesn't quite understand that you're not supposed to be out there hunting for or looking for other issues. The other thing, though, it could be two-sided, because we get it frequently when we go out on a claim, and the homeowner will get us there, and suddenly that one claim they had for crackling noises becomes 6 different items that they want us to look at while we're there, and the manufacturers say, "Well, take a look at all of it." So,
tell me why they did this.
Hey, I do it the same time to doctors every time I got a doctor's appointment. I try to get it over in one appointment.
That's why your bill goes from free to $800.
I got one. I saw a report where it was a finish claim, and the report, they're checking for expansion. So it kind of blew me away. But sometimes with those protocol that we have to follow, and you have to rule. So sometimes I have installers, "What are you doing that for? What are you looking over there?" Well, maybe I'm ruling things out, right? Maybe I have to do a comparison. Guys, like, "Why are you checking moisture over there?" But little does he know, I'm doing I'm qualifying some areas. I got to get a reference point. So that, but I'm not going into that. But the guy thinks I'm an idiot doing what I'm doing. I'm doing a hammer tap test in an area. He goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm ruling things out, or I'm following protocol. You still have to be somewhat thorough, because sometimes when if you try to surmise or think something, but you get in there and you're real thorough and you do a deep dive, you realize, "Oh my God, this is going on." And another thing is, I'll be there, and there'll be the lawyer, there'll be this person, that person, 4 people, and they try to sell you on something. They try to steer you off into the wrong direction on something. And I know what this guy's doing. It's totally not that, right? That's such a classic one. "Oh, outside over there's an apple tree, and it's got what?" So, but a lot of that stuff happens. So my point is, you got to be kind of thorough. You got to rule some things out and check some things out. Even though it may not be obviously on a finish, you don't need to check gap expansion space, right? But there are some things you have to be somewhat thorough, and that could be sometimes what inspectors are doing.
I have a question for you guys.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
It just popped in my head with what he was saying is now we're in the DIY era, right? And if a homeowner can file a claim and hire an inspector, or an inspector gets sent out, when you guys go to a DIY, what is the failure rate versus homeowner install versus manufacturer defect? Do they understand?
150%.
Okay, I'm just asking because, it's this so easy, an electrician can do it type things. But
we had just had there was a post that I think you guys talked about recently. That was
Cortex.
You guys talked about a post, I think, where they just talked about that one. Yeah, yes.
It was the Cortex post.
Yes, and
no skilled labor required.
On one of the threads that the instructions also say test the subfloor according to ASTM this and ASTM that, and
no skill required. Yeah.
Listen,
the minor floor regulator.
I missed that. So
so it was in one of the magazines, right? And it was, and I already said it, so I'm going to say it again. It was the Cortex post, and right there in big bold letters, it said no skilled labor required to install it. Yeah. And then Paul did Was it in the fine print right there on that page, or did you look up the specs on it?
I just looked up the installation
marketing,
instructions
man.
quick.
So look up the installation instructions, and it says right in the installation instructions, test for this, test for that, has to be within this tolerance. But you don't have to be skilled to do that.
Yeah.
So
Or
they were
keep
just
a-
referring to
keep
the
a standard
installation.
check. Yeah.
Now think
yeah.
about that. Being qualified to do these moisture tests if you do go to court, did you use a qualified person to do these tests? Right. That's another one. If not, you're already done.
Look, at the end of the day, there's very few DIY products that are actually DIY. They're the substrate that Jason kind of obsessed on in our first podcast with him, which rightfully so. That matters way more, almost more than how you put the product in. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the thing that grabs you is not doing the floor prep correctly, or not testing for moisture, or not putting the moisture
what
barrier
installers
down.
tell me? They tell me I wasn't paid to do it. That's what they tell me on site when I have conversations with them. When I can speak,
I know.
I wasn't paid to put a moisture barrier. I wasn't paid to prep. The customer didn't pay me. My boss didn't pay me. They're not paying me.
Well, maybe
They told me not to do it.
maybe not.
What about this one right here?
I think that's the
What about this
easiest
comment
one
right here,
to-
guys?
And
I got a comment on an email right here that says, we've never had to do that in any other building all over the whole country. We're talking about prep for VCT.
yeah, well, unfortunately, that's the kind of stuff that we run up against, and from the installer side, the truth is that installers, going back again to Paul's earlier comment, being well educated on our craft, not just having the hand skills to actually do it, but having the mind skills and the professionalism to understand why you're doing it that way, will go a long way. And if you're not getting paid to do something, you don't just then do the next step. That in every contract that I get in the commercial world, and so we don't get a lot of contracts in the residential world, I don't think, but in the commercial world, all the contracts state that once you start applying our product to the previous guy's product, you own it. So you have to bring up the problems and stop. For example, this applies to sheetrockers, right? The plumber didn't have on a project the valves stemmed out to where he could cut around them, and they just laid the sheetrock over them. And what happened? They had to go take all that down on their own dime. It's the same thing with flooring. We install over a bad concrete or wood substrate, and we don't stop, bring up the problem, create a solution, and then apply that solution. Then we are taking responsibility for the issue. Not being paid for it, or whatever, that is not an excuse. Just don't.
That's
First
where
off, if you
integrity
lose-
comes in, right? Integrity comes in. That's one of our core values. And we talk about this with the guys a lot, and they're like, I thought you said we weren't getting paid for that. I said, I know we're not getting paid for it, but we have to do it. Like
that's the thing.
It's
Or
going to
sometimes
take 45 minutes of our time. Like, it's going to take 45 minutes. Just get it done. I know it's going to be right. Just do it.
Yeah, there's the right way and the easy way, right? And so that's an issue that plagues a lot of installers, is they always an easy way. They roll the dice.
I'm going to say that one of the problems is that installers having the thought that being paid for the installation is only to take this product and click it to another piece of the same product. That is not installation, my friends. You might as well be a DIY. If you're not going to take the next step of being a professional, knowing why you're doing something and knowing what the right steps are. If you're properly educated, I'll use like just a vapor barrier underneath, Cortec or any floating click product. That's supposed to be there. It's in the install instructions. If you're not paid for it, maybe that's when you don't accept the project. from the company or from the, like, I won't do this unless I've got to do this piece, and you got to pay me to do this piece, or else I can't do it.
So,
Like,
so
Yeah.
that's having integrity and standing up too. Sometimes it's like,
this
okay,
line
how long
work?
is it going to take you to do to roll out the Viz Queen and put it down? If you can still get it done and still make good money for the day, do it,
It's
and
the
you know you got
cheaper.
it done right.
That's
What if
right.
the installer just doesn't know that that's what you're supposed to do? Will that hold up in court?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't
Well,
know you were supposed to do that, so you know,
No,
I don't need to do it,
no,
right?
that doesn't work. That doesn't work, you know. But I'll tell you that a lot of times, what happens is it's also that chain, right? When you have foremen or the managers or the owners or whoever they're working for, there's no communication. And you know, I think you guys have all touched upon this, but it also can go back to estimating too, and improper estimating or bidding projects, or and then you get in there
Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, I'm not going to make any money at it. And so then you start getting into these moral issues and judgment calls, depending on if it's a contractor or if it's subbed out or if it's an employee. There's going to be different mindsets along the way, which could cause, because unfortunately, when an inspector goes out to inspect, it's costing somebody some money, you know.
Every
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Every time.
And
And
it's sad sometimes when I go out and I see some of these guys and they just did bonehead moves. And I think to myself, gosh, man, and I have to report it properly. And I just feel, but you're going to learn, and hopefully you learn from this mistake. Like Paul said, you either win or you become wise. And hopefully, it doesn't cost you too much, because one job can bankrupt a business.
yeah, and I
Well,
think
one job could pay for your proper training to get your
Yeah.
training ahead of
And that's
time.
why we're out here educating to try and get in front of all of this stuff, and really
It's a struggle. We fight from Go Carrera to the Huddle. We are aligned on getting properly trained to install products, and Go Carrera is an accreditation process for installers. But at the end of the day, we the whole purpose is to get trained. You can either spend your money or invest it. When you get trained, that stays with you. It's like putting money in the stock market, or you can go spend it on Jolly Ranchers or whatever the hell, and it's gone forever. The 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 whole goal is to, and who know, like, you can't even put a dollar figure on the stress and the pressure that comes on you when you have a big claim. So avoid all that, get properly trained, get some inspector courses. I'm gonna myself take an inspector course, and NAFCT is a great place to go, guys. So, like, get an inspector course under your belt. Make sure you got the industry standard training as well, that you have, if it's a product, a manufacturer specific training, or getting your standard kind of, I'd call it, industry training from a CFI,
Yeah.
or an AFT, or one of the training entities. And I know NAFCT also has some trainings. To get educated, get professional, get trained, and then you're starting off in such a better place than the learn as you go, take your hits, lose money, and you're going to get taught one way or another, or it's going to cost you to get taught one way or another. It's much better to invest it early on, and you'll have a happier installation career.
And if I could add just one thing to that, with all of these questions that everybody had with inspectors and their so-called or perceived allegiances, listen, if you can go to a doctor who's got 8 years of school and $1 million worth of student loans, maybe, and you can go to them and get a second opinion when they have told you what's wrong with you, you sure as heck can go get a second opinion on a flooring inspector. Go find somebody else, bring them in if you disagree with it. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't need to be
Hey, we've done that
argumentative.
before.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because we talked about like the biases when you're like, or yeah, the biases, and you think that an inspector is out to get you, and when they don't invite you, and who hires this person, because we've been on that side where we were an installer, right? We were labor only. The flooring store hired an inspector and then said, hey, they said that's exactly what they said. You guys didn't use seam sealer. We said, oh, really? All right. We are going to hire our own inspector to go out there. Never mind. Never mind.
It would behoove them to do it. I mean, they bring Mr. Kleshek in behind me all the time, but I just come out squeaky clean. You're good.
Hey, from
Well, I
us,
tell you,
I've been in court litigation with inspectors I'm good friends with. You know, we can also disagree on things, and sometimes we agree on things in different ways. But you know,
we had a friend inspect our stuff and fail it.
Ooh,
Not even gonna lie. And that was a couple years ago. It was like, there's no way. But you know what?
We're still friends. We're still great friends. And he failed it, and it wasn't based on installation. It was based on false information that was given to us by the GC.
But at the end of the day, that's a good example of an inspector just doing his job, regardless of what the
100%.
deal is, like doing his job. And I've won inspections because I hired another inspector come down, and I mean, it happens. And like Paul just said, get a second opinion if you don't agree. But many of them don't do that. If I find, let me say this, I would imagine that it's not as comfortable to ask for a second inspection if you haven't been properly trained, and you don't know. If you have been, you have that confidence that, like, I'm going to hire, like, an untrained guy is scared of two inspectors saying it's your fault. Now where do you go? Right? So
hire a third and a fourth. Keep on hiring until someone says it's not your fault.
Eventually, the deck stacked against you. At the end of the day, I know I'm drilling on training, but to me, that's like the secret weapon, is really knowing what you're doing and what you're talking about, and then getting that second opinion, you know,
or third in some cases. I mean,
yeah.
they.
So
it's ruling out the possibilities.
I wonder what what is the when you guys do manufacturers hate it when you fail their floor and find them at fault?
They argue sometimes.
That's a question I've been given.
Listen, if I could say one thing, inspectors as a group, and this happened just a little before I got involved with another group. Early on, we were inspecting floors on the wood floor side. This was probably 15 years ago now. We would go out and look at checks, and manufacturers would say that checks were site related, and that was their company line. They said, "No, that's not our fault. These are site related issues, and the floor checks from a dry environment when you have insufficient humidification over winter, etc." So some inspectors, a group of inspectors, went and talked to Alex Wiedenhoff down at Forest Products Lab, and they talked to some guys over at some universities and talked to them, and these wood professionals came and said, no, that's impossible, because you need about I don't know if it was like a 10% gradient to create enough tension to tear the wood grain, and it has to happen fairly rapidly. That doesn't happen within a home environment. So inspectors started to refer to that, and we started talking about it and how that happens in the kiln drying process when, and what happens is they would dry down, and then the checks would open up, and then they condition the wood, they steam it, they add some moisture to it, and then all the checks close up. Then they put it in the house, it gets dry, and those existing checks open up. Well, so inspectors work towards finding the right answers, not just taking answers that were given by the industry and provided by the industry. And when that happened, the industry just went and said, well, that's a characteristic of wood, it's not a defect. But that's a different story altogether.
How convenient. You bought it.
We do, as inspectors, we do look for areas that we can find proof, because we're supposed to implement the scientific method, right? We're supposed to go in there. We're supposed to create a theory on what's happening with the floor. We're supposed to take the tests that are designed to test that theory to make sure it's correct or not correct. And if it is correct, we can move on with the proof according to our testing. If it's not correct, then we have to find a different theory and start over. When Jason was talking earlier about the things that you go and do when you go look at a flooring and you're looking at something and think, oh, this is completely unrelated. Well, you might be testing a theory and finding out that that theory is wrong. You could be doing something that you think is unrelated, but that was that inspector's first hypothesis that he's going in to say, well, I think this is what's doing it. It's not it. So we moved on to a different thought. So, if you apply the scientific method to any of this, you'll start to realize quickly that inspections is a very cut and dry business. It has very little to do with personal opinions on somebody's ability or somebody's profession.
That's right. You don't really care. You gotta, get the facts, just the facts, man.
Well, that's what Clayton says, right? He's at this comment right here. The answers are in the floor and presenting that information in a way that is inarguable. So the answers are there. You just got to find them, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway from today is that, one, if you're getting an inspector that you feel is kind of going behind your back and trying to go in the manufacturer's favor, you always have that option to get your own opinion, right? Hire your own inspector and see what they say. And two, man, go to these classes because you want to know what they're looking for. You guys are called inspectors for a reason. You're there to inspect, and that's why you're over there doing something. Like, why is he over there? He's inspecting. That's his job.
Yeah, you're going to find out why. You're going to find out why they're looking at something. How to install properly. You should be getting the proper training and certifications to do so, and then go to one of these inspector courses that'll help you understand why they're looking at different things. And maybe you misunderstood Rollins. I love Rollin, but I thought I'd bring up his comment earlier, that checking areas that don't have a problem, like it seems like Paul was alluding, that could be testing a hypothesis about the actual problem. Who knows? But the point is, you won't know till you learn. So we are rounding up on the hour here. What was you going to say, Jose?
I was just wondering if they have gadgets to go with their inspector title.
Inspector gadgets.
Lots of gadgets.
Sure. Many gadgets.
So I know you guys are. Oh, go ahead.
And also when Daniel or I or one of us from Preferred come down to take that class, is it going to come with a shirt that says "Science Don't Lie" on the back?
Ooh, not bad.
Trademark. We already trademarked that.
Trademark by Ricky
Trademark. Just the facts, man.
That's right.
To round this out, and maybe go ahead, Jason.
I was going to tell Mr. Plishik, I'll do the cologne. One more thing. Colombo. You're leaving. One more thing. Did you do moisture testing?
Hey, I'll say sometimes I know we could talk all day. I say sometimes I will go out and whatever I think the problem is with the floor, I'll do it last because I've gotten yelled at for checking like flatness and things like that. So sometimes I just say what I think it is till last. So if they're going to start yelling at me, I can just do it quick and get out the door. So.
Yeah. I did the Colombo last week to the guy who showed up on site and was mad at me because I couldn't tell him anything. And I was leaving, and I go, "Oh, one more thing. Did you do the moisture test?" Oh man, well I did it. The calcium chloride and the RH and the manufacturer. I go, did you do it though? And then no. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Right.
That guy almost sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger for a second.
Yeah. But like Mr. Plishik says, doing it last sometimes like that. That's yeah.
Okay, so let's round this out. We all agree that being properly trained is your first line of defense. Maybe consider taking the inspector course to understand more why and up your professionalism. And then the inspectors are not your enemy. a lot of times engaging with them and being there present and helping them can turn out. It's not always it's not like they're there to get you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They're there to find the problem, and you can always go back and get a second opinion if you need one. So advice, let's round it out with advice for installers outside of what I just said about getting trained and actually taking the inspector course. What when they're dealing with an inspector on a project, best practices, like what helps you guys out from the inspector's side, and I'll kick it off with the installer side, and maybe we can just go around the room. To me, I love it when, what I look for in an inspector is someone who actually is trying to discover the issue regardless. And a lot of times you can tell, and it's not always pointing towards one way or the other, but friendliness and, having your report match the stuff you say on site, or otherwise maybe don't say anything, or tell me you can't say something, or what have you. Whatever you need to do, that's from the installer company kind of perspective. Don't have those two conflict. That would be a big thing for me. What about one of you inspectors? How can installers and companies work with you the best when you are on site? Make this thing go as good as possible.
If we can discuss, maybe just be open to discussion and not be confrontational. And I think that if you have an open mind about things and you're willing to learn about what potentially is going on, I think that's going to be beneficial for the installer and or the company that's commissioned or person.
I personally love documentation. If you did moisture testing, take pictures of it or get floor cloud, right? I mean, I love everything that's done prior to the installation to help me exclude everything beforehand, right? If I can exclude everything leading up to installation based on your documentation, suddenly I can come in there and say, well, okay, what happened after the installation? If you can verify the flatness, if you go through and, get some pictures, show what you did, show where the areas were. With wood subfloors, they change. And it doesn't necessarily mean, when I see a wood subfloor issue, if it's 6 months out, that's one thing. If I'm 5 years down the road, what's changed? When did the issue arise? So for me, documentation, everything that you have that documents everything that you did helps me to say that not, I think this is what you did, but I know this is what you did because you showed me pictures of it. You showed me what you did.
Yeah, for sure.
How about another flooring guy?
What I look for in an inspector is someone to come over and when you're done inspecting, to buy me lunch.
Woo!
So,
easy.
Take notes.
Damn it, Daniel. Damn it. I was going to say, buy me tacos. That's it.
and that's only because that's happened almost every time. And I think that's probably because, like I said, every time I have an inspector, it's always, hey, you guys did everything right. And then it's always, can I buy you lunch? And I think they just want to pick my brain because they probably don't come across someone with as much knowledge as we have. And they're just like, where did you learn from? Where did you get this information from? And it's like, I just tell them, man, it's crazy because we were so. I learned from the Huddle, that's where we learned from.
If I were put in that situation again, and I'll go back through all my experiences with inspectors, it's just understand that not everybody knows everything about flooring, and sometimes those people are there to learn. And as soon as they feel like it's going the opposite way and not in their favor, they are going to get a little defensive, and just bear with them, be a little patient.
Cool.
Hey, do you guys want to give your information? Because you guys are still inspecting, right? So if anyone's in your area, they can hire you guys.
Yeah, where can they find you, Jason, if they're out in California? How do they get a hold of you?
Nate, you are right.
Yeah. OCFlooringInspections.com or California Flooring Service is my installation company. Either one. Thank you.
Paul?
Listen, I'm mostly come out to these things for the National Association of Floor Covering Technicians, for the education of it. I still do inspections in Wisconsin. You got Google, you can find me. But
What's your cell phone number?
Yeah,
cell phone number.
Just Google Paul Pleshek inspector. He'll pop up.
But we've we've got a vinyl course we did online. I think we've got some things lined up. I think you'll see some different inspection things coming up here. We've got the carpet one down in Georgia. It's the best place to do it because that's where the flooring is. Frankly, the more you can get manufacturers involved in your inspector courses, the more you can have conversations that are sort of off the record. When you can get in manufacturers aside and ask them questions where they're not, being documented and so forth, they can give you some different answers and different things to look for. So getting to an inspector course that's down in Georgia really does pay for itself, because that's where the manufacturers can come hang out and just kind of get to know everybody that's there. So, we appreciate that, and we appreciate you guys' support with the Huddle and everything that you guys do for the industry. I don't know.
Likewise.
Is that our QR code that says inspector or inspector?
Oh, yep, that's me. I don't know how to spell, apparently. I was doing it while we were talking.
That's okay. I was going to get on.
It does take you to the right spot, though. You got the right.
Okay.
You got the main part correct. So, well, thanks guys for joining us today. It's awesome as usual with these things. We could probably talk another hour and not even know it went by. But for the algorithms and the love, if you enjoy what you've watched or found it informational, please give us a subscribe, a like on whatever platform you're watching. Comment, let us know what you want to hear. And I want to thank Daniel and Jose for all the contributions and holding the Huddle up and helping it keep going. Thank you, Jason and Paul, for joining us today. It was a great conversation, and I'm sure we'll have round 2 in the near future.
Absolutely. And also, if you don't like the content, still like and subscribe and just bash us all the time.
Yeah, interact either way, baby. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. I thank you guys for joining us. Until next week, we'll talk to you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see ya.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.